Dun, dun, dun. There we go. Yeah, so the one flaw, the first one of these we did was like DVD quality online, right? And not the rest of them so far.
No, not at all. And actually, this is something to bring up later, but IMDb trivia says that there is a missing scene, and so my version was 22 minutes. I don't know how long yours was, but
There,
it would indicate there might be something missing.
actually, it might be online. There was one called was slightly longer that was called restored version, which I thought meant like they tried to make the video better. Um, but
Oh,
yeah, I actually
I watched the wrong video. That would be classic. Let's see. I'm
I
gonna look up on YouTube real fast while you're.
okay, yeah, that's probably actually I could do that on my iPad here. But it was just from the same one step beyond site, but yeah, we just got spoiled because the navigator just like looked great. It looked, almost as good as the Twilight Zones.
What was that one about?
It was a tall ship or a merchant ship uh thing, which the guest chose it because the Twilight Zone never gets on a merchant ship. Like there's no like tall ship Twilight Zone,
There's the
Restore.
one about the, oh gosh, I don't remember. It's the one that I wanted to do too, that has Cecil Kellaway, and it's like the trip of doom where they keep telling the couple not to go on the ship. They're like, no, we really want to go on this ship. And they're like, okay. And it's like a death ship. It's the Maria Anna, I don't know.
Could it be Death Ship? I think there is an episode called Death Ship.
No, it's not that straightforward. It's the voyage of the. Okay, well now I'll look that up too. So I found only a 22-minute version of Death Waltz, and that was the
Hold
one
on.
that I watched. So, but I'm aware of what was missing, so we can still discuss it.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Uh, hold on. One here. Oh, wait. It said no. It says improved quality and it's shorter. So, so you watched the correct one, and yeah, what you saw was not available, I suppose. Before I start, let me just put the prologue on the share screen.
Actually, I double checked your prologue and I kind of spaced it out, so you don't have to. I have it. I have your document, and I'll just read
Okay.
them.
Okay, good.
But
Because I,
it's
unlike the Twilight Zone where I get to copy and paste, I have to transcribe these.
I know, yeah. So it's the passage on the Lady Anne is the episode of the Twilight Zone that I'm thinking of.
Oh,
So that,
okay,
but it's
okay.
not a merchant ship, but it is a ship. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm.
Is it a steamer or is it like a tall ship?
Um, that I don't know. It's like a passenger ship. It's like a cruise ship.
Okay, yeah. The charm of this one, it's a wooden ship, right? That's anyway, that's what the guest's rationale was, right? Oh, I want to do this one, and he just happened to choose the one that looks really good on YouTube. So,
Well,
and
smart. But I'm glad we watched this one because I enjoyed it.
yeah,
Although this prologue, let me tell you, is a little disrespectful. But let me see. All right, I'm ready when you're ready to have
yeah,
me read.
and the end has so many ands. Yeah, it's well, I mean, we'll get into it. It's obviously this isn't maybe 100. It's not, it's quality stuff, but it's not the Twilight Zone, is it?
I
But
guess
we
I
are
guess I didn't think of it that way. I didn't think of it as like a lesser version. I thought of it as along the same vein, and I did like it.
yeah. Oh yeah, same here. The one it looks like we're going to be doing this a little longer. See, the thing is, I mean, I can talk about whatever I want. I'm not part of a union, but several of my guests, regular guests, they work for Roddenberry, so they cannot do this stuff right now. Like I was about to ask John Champion to do the Love Guru, right? Because he was scheduled for that. I was like, I can't ask him to do that. So I was just like, give me something public domain. And he was like, Plan 9. And I was like, yes. He said the last like theater performance he had done where he played Eros, the alien, was a stage thing called Plans 1 through 8 from Outer Space, where they went over the first 8 plans, which involves things like I don't know, like trying to get Fidel Castro involved or something. Yeah.
Wow.
So really, really strange stuff. And we did that. What else? What else were we doing for the films one? So we all just chose something that was basically his choice because that's where I kind of like turned the key. Mark works on film and stuff and has a lot of friends who are on strike right now, and I was like, we'll just change gears for a bit while that's going on. It's interesting, I think. So
I think
but
so.
this is going to be the one steps beyond, and then the fourth week's going to be Jim Henson's The Cube. Have you ever seen that?
I remember you showed me a movie called The Cube once, but it was not related to Jim Henson.
No,
It
no, no,
was,
not the movie The Cube, and I didn't show it to you by the way, but I've never seen
I
it.
thought you did.
No, no,
I thought you did. Doesn't it have Jack Nicholson in it?
oh, that's something else. Anyway, this is on YouTube. It's 1968 or 1969. It's The Cube. No Muppets, no puppets. Jim Henson directs. Written by Jerry Jewell, who did write most of the Muppet Show, and it's one set. It's a dude in a cube, and just like crazy existential stuff keeps happening. So it's not funny, but it still kind of feels like Muppety dialogue somehow because it's Jerry Jewell writing, and it's kind of like every Twilight Zone at once.
The Cube is an hour-long teleplay that aired on NBC's weekly anthology television show, NBC Experiment in Television, in
Yes.
1969. Cool.
And then after that I'm lining up another one of these ones, probably a few more of these one step beyonds. And apparently the most notorious episode of this is The Sacred Mushroom, in which John Newland goes, it's in documentary form. It's not a like little, chamber play like the other episodes, where John Newland, the presenter, actually goes down to Mexico, meets with the shaman because he heard like they give you psychic powers, eats them, and has the results recorded on 1961 television. I was like, whoa. And they didn't, after it aired, it didn't get aired in the syndication run or anything. So,
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
see, that's creative television.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, really, and I'm like, that's before the Carlos Castaneda books, that's insane. So I am looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I think a lot. I mean, this is fun because a lot of people are familiar with the Twilight Zone, and a lot of people aren't familiar with these sort of other things. So I think it's a good thing, and I think it's a lot of fun to delve deeper into this time period and the other content that was out there.
Yeah, no, I did it because when I got the Twilight Zone Blu-ray, I got a couple other anthology shows, right? Like you got Tales from the Dark Side up there, Ray Bradbury Theater, and I kept seeing One Step Beyond come up. Oh, that looks cool, and I thought about it, but then I look at the reviews, it's like, oh, this set's missing a few. This set looks like crap. So I didn't buy it. But so when it came down to this, I'm like, well, if the DVDs were that crap, they must all be on YouTube, which is true. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be a couple that are technically not public domain, but I don't need to worry about that because again, it's not like a legal thing, right? It's just kind
Mm-hmm.
of a solidarity thing. Before I get, what were the films we're doing? We all made a choice for the films and filth. Um, so I'm putting the Buster Keaton double feature in Steamboat Bill Jr., Sherlock Jr.,
Excellent.
which is Hollywood, but is very public domain. And hey, it was Buster Keaton Productions anyway, which he did not own. But we'll do those two. Luke, it's his birthday. His birthday September 11th. Weirdly enough, so he got two choices. So we recorded Shin Godzilla already. Have you ever seen that?
I don't think so, but I would like to.
That's very worth seeing. And just when you're watching as a film person, the big thing is, I don't even know if we mentioned this when we did the podcast, but all the shots with Godzilla are kind of like grandiose, slow moving. You just see Godzilla slowly going through the city. Um, Whereas 80% of the movie is actually set in like government boardrooms and stuff, which is lots of fast talking, fast cutting, and that sort of thing. And they can't make any decisions because it's the Japanese government. Their only decision is to go somewhere else and have another meeting half the time.
Is this a 2016 sci-fi horror?
That's right, and it's kind of it's a referencing the government's reaction to Fukushima, basically. So,
Okay.
and then the day we recorded the podcast, just ironically, was the day they started dumping the water into the ocean. So,
Mm, gosh.
which I don't know how much of that big that is in American news, but obviously it was top headlines here because China's pissed off. They've banned all Japanese seafood for the time being.
Oh no.
So if you go to a Japanese restaurant in China right now, it's going to be like Australian or Swedish um,
Interesting.
fish that you're actually having.
Well, it makes me very grateful for our salmon in the Pacific Northwest because that is some delicious sashimi.
Yeah, but it does taste different than what you get around Japan, right? There's
Oh, sure. It
de-
does.
definitely some things there. What was the other one we were gonna do? Oh, Mark chose something called Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain. So like a Hong Kong film, and then in October, I guess we got to go on. So what are we going? Sorry, I'm just having a little brain exercise. October, of course, make it scarier. So I think Mark wanted to do Phenomena or Critters is the other. It's a Argento film.
I'm still back on Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, which
Yeah, I
is
don't know anything about that
spectacular.
one yet. Yeah, I don't know anything about that one yet. So the
Wow.
Jap
I just love the poster. It's very
colorful.
busy and
Yeah.
yes, colorful, kind of apocalyptic. I like it.
The Japanese version of The Ring.
Uh-huh.
2000
That's a great one to
Maniacs.
do.
2000 Maniacs is my choice. Are you familiar with 2000 Maniacs? It's the guy who made Blood Feast.
Oh, well, I certainly am familiar with that. Maniacs. I think I might, but all of these help to look up. Oh,
It's
2000 Maniacs, all written out, exclamation point at the end.
yes, that's correct.
1964 horror slash splatter. I didn't even know splatter was a genre.
Yeah, it's like a redneck, gory remake of Brigadoon, filmed on the future site of Walt Disney World.
Starring 1963 Playboy playmate Connie Mason.
Yes, but
Wow.
it's actually been a long time since I've seen that one, but it seems like a good one to do for that. So, what was the
Takes
other
place
one?
in a small deep south town for a
Right,
centennial celebration. Oh my
and
gosh, I'm not going to read more of that for the sake of spoilers, but that
well,
is an excellently bizarre movie.
I think I spoiled it by saying Brigadoon, but
No, I mean, yeah, I guess, but there's a lot more there. There's plenty to discuss.
okay, I guess we'll get this thing started. So give me just 5 seconds to cite in the sound file, and we'll be rolling. Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast, where we will be going beyond, one step beyond, as we are currently focusing on episodes of the contemporary series to the Twilight Zone, One Step Beyond. This is Matt here as always. Coming back, it's Dorian Bowen, film archivist. This should be an interesting place for a film archivist to look, yes?
Hmm. Agreed.
I guess it's television, so it's a little bit of a different thing, but
It's media. It's all media. It's all film history, television history. It's all one big thing.
and apologies to the viewer that's watching this on YouTube, and it looks like a supermarket VHS from the 80s on YouTube. It does seem that I think the show was shot on film because we did The Navigator last week, and that one looks quite filmy and good on YouTube. So there are exceptions, but we just have to get by on the chamber drama, the writing, and the acting for today's episode, The Death Waltz. So before I hit record, I was kind of explaining to you how when I was getting my anthology series starting this podcast, I was getting a few anthology shows, and this one kept coming up, but it was like cut rate, missing episodes, that sort of thing. So I didn't get it. That's how I became aware of it. Did you have any awareness of the show before I sicked one on you?
I really didn't, and I'm glad to have done this. I was obviously familiar with Outer Limits, but I didn't dive deep enough to see One Step Beyond. So this is all new to me.
Yeah, I think we do see a few, well, kind of alienish things on One Step Beyond it at some point, but yeah, it's a little more grounded, I guess, like Twilight Zone. But the conceit is that everything here is based on a quote unquote real life event. So depending on how you read those, um, I guess we'll get into it then and have you read the prologue, which you don't have to do anybody's impression because no one's ever going to recognize a John Newland impression, I think.
No, that's true. This is just going to be me. But this
Yeah.
prologue, I read the prologue before I saw the episode. So, well, we'll come back to that. But I think, okay, I'll just read it.
Read it,
The
then
war,
comment on it.
okay, I will. The war between the states, that bloody war, is ended. But here in the West, another war rages. From Montana to Arizona, men named Carpenter and Crook and Custer fight men called Red Cloud and Spotted Tail, Crazy Horse and Geronimo. It's a war of unparalleled horror and tragedy and savagery, of horrors beyond recounting. And yet, in the opinion of many, its most terrifying instant occurred not on the plains, but here in the comparative safety Fort Union, New Mexico. And not during a battle, but during a dance, and not to a soldier, but to a girl.
So
And
what
that
did
would
you
be
think after
27-year-old, I'm sorry, that would be 27-year-old girl Elizabeth Montgomery.
right? Oh, 20, yeah, 27 Club.
Mhm.
Fortunately, not Elizabeth Montgomery. That actually, we're doing things bass backwards today. I forgot to do my trivia, so I guess I'll do the trivia now.
Okay.
uh, so just cut, rinse, repeat, reverse. Original air date was October 4th, 1960. As with all One Step Beyond episodes, John Newland hosts and directs. Series creator Merwin Gerard is on the script along with Amanda Ellis and Charles Larson, excuse me. Larson also wrote for the FBI in the streets of San Francisco, while this seems to be Ellis's only credit, certainly if we trust IMDb on that. Elizabeth Montgomery stars as Lily Clark. Her career is too vast to really recount here, but of course, we'll note that she starred as Samantha Stevens on the series Bewitched, and folks in these parts probably saw her in the Twilight episode 2. Ghostly Lieutenant Eustace Fairchild was played by Robert Sampson. Genre fans will note his role 25 years later as Dean Halsey in Reanimator. Finally, Joe Cronin played Lieutenant Henry Buchanan. Cronin also appeared on Perry Mason and in Gus Van Zant's 2003 film Elephant. Weirdly enough, that seems to be his only credits. One episode of this, one episode of Perry Mason, and then what, 40 years later, this Gus Van Sant film. I'm like, that's kind of bizarre.
It's very weird. And there's very little information biographically about him also. So he's a mystery. I thought that was very interesting.
So he should have been the ghost because we
Maybe he is.
because we got Robert Sampson in a very notable role, right? I mean, well, if you know Reanimator, you definitely know Dean Halsey.
And was he the one who also recently appeared on The Hunters, the Al Pacino television series? I thought it was, I mean, it's 2020, which is also the year that he dies, but I thought that that was his last credited role.
Oh, okay. Well, there's another one. Yeah. So maybe they should have switched roles. I don't know. I guess the dead lieutenant had to be the slightly dumpier looking one though, instead of our charming Joe Cronin, who we know nothing about. So,
The mystery man.
um, anyway, you were saying you read the prologue before seeing the episode and had thoughts. I have a few thoughts too, but how about throw yours out and we'll see.
I had
How,
strong feelings about, I mean, I get what they're trying to do, but they're basically like, you've heard of the Trail of Tears, you've heard of the ethnic cleansing of Native Americans, but have you heard what happened to this pretty white lady when she pitted her boyfriends against each other? That was the real tragedy of the time. Like, that's how that struck me, was like, yeah, that unparalleled horror, tragedy, savagery, but you know what else happened is this spooky thing. So that sort of hit me the wrong way. But
yeah, that's pretty much how I came to it. Because at
okay.
first, it's like how a lot of Twilight Zones, it's like this despicable man that everyone hates. It's like they're kind of like character judging this one person you're about to watch, which is usually just kind of funny, right? Whereas this one, like you said, it invokes a Civil War. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be like a Civil War episode. Oh, okay, they're out in the West. It's like kind of like a Serenity thing, the post-war. No, no, not really that either. And then they start mentioning Custer and Red Cloud and Geronimo, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna have to do with that. Like, no, it's not really gonna have to do with that either. So, um, I don't know how would you rewrite it? Yeah, it's not the best written intro. I was also complaining to you how many like and yet and not is
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe that fits the way John Newland talks.
Maybe. I don't have much of a basis of comparison, so I just assume he was being flourishy here and dramatic. But yeah, that just hit me the wrong way. And I learned a lot about racism and like the what? Wait, hold on, let me pull it up. Andrew Jackson coming into office and like really the Indian Removal Act. I learned about that. I learned about, the American Indian Wars actually lasted from 1609 to 1924. So, I mean, it's just really random to throw something so significant and so tragic in there as a precursor to this one lady's story. So, I guess I understand what they're trying to set the scene. So I understand that, but they did it in a poor way in retrospect.
Yes. Um, I guess we can move into the episode itself where I did have to watch this twice like because the lieutenant and Lily have like such a weird toxic relationship. Like I didn't even pick up on it the first time because I was like, is he like creeping on her? Which I guess he kind of is. And at first I guess from a 2023 perspective, she's like, ooh, get away from me, and that you kind of just buy that, right? But in
Well, I don't know.
1960
In your notes,
television,
you said that she was kind of independent, but I do think she's being cruel because she's manipulative. Like she's sort of disposing of people. And so I didn't find her as sympathetic as a character. And although the Eustace, which is the only time I've ever heard that name, that's such an unusual name, right? Eustace. Um, He's the one who is so jealous that he's jealous of, quote, everything you brush up against, which I wrote down because that's so creepy that that's a special thing. So, it is dysfunctional. He seems really obsessed with her, and she seems to like him when it's convenient for her. So I think I don't think he understands his boundaries real great, but she also is leading him on, I think. So I
yeah,
don't like you.
I think my first view, I was like, everyone expects her to get married. She's the only non-married woman on the camp in the camp or the fort or whatever. And well, she actually does want to hook up, I guess. So, but yeah, I was watching as no, she just wants to like be the single person on the base. What's the problem with that? But that actually, this is such a 1960. It's such a weird perspective because it's like such a blend, right? Because there are people like forward thinking in 1960 for sure, including on television. But at the same time, there's quite a few social norms that we would think of
Mhm.
now as being like completely ridiculous, but at the time maybe nobody noticed, or even thought of it. It's hard to put yourself in the mindset of that time. And that might be an interesting little just shade between this and the regular zone, where most of the zone still seems to be on the wavelength of the modern thinker, where this one is a little bit off kilter. And that's not like a criticism, it's just like how it is. um
But unless they were going for the time period, and if during the Civil War you're the only pretty lady that wasn't married and you're surrounded by men all the time, then there could, and you really are 27, then I guess there could be an expectation that you would be serious and settle down and contribute to the cause by, doing your wifely and motherly duties. So that could also be implying that during the Civil War that was a role that she was not yet fulfilling.
I also came into this episode, oh, Elizabeth with the inclination, Elizabeth Montgomery, yeah, great, we like her, right? So I came in the episode predisposed to like her before. Yeah, especially on the second view, I mean, she's great, but you're like, yeah, this girl's kind of terrible.
Mm-hmm. The first way they indicated that was when somebody asked about the casualties. Her stepmother was asking about it. And she's like, oh, yeah, I was totally going to ask about if anyone died. I was going to get to it. Like, you could tell that she really hadn't really considered that might be something weighing on them. Um, so I think they did a good job of that. And I think she did a good job of having that kind of flippant character that really she turns a lot of things around, but it really is all about her.
But yes, I was too predisposed towards Samantha Stevens when starting this one, basically, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
took me two views to actually get how she's acting in this episode. So
That's that's a nice compliment that you had to like dig deeper for the bad part.
yeah, really. And yeah, my notes were the first watch where I was trying to be on her side, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't really. So um I mean, I didn't find trivia on it or whatever, but I was thinking about the fort set a little bit. Because I wonder if they're reusing like some of the same sets on the zones Death's Head revisited. They basically just get to use a Western set, right? And make it look like a concentration camp instead. But I assume that's probably what they were doing here.
Well, it said it was ABC Films and it was shot at MGM. So
Okay.
by 1960, there's still a lot of free backlots at MGM that they could be recycling for television specifically. So
Yeah.
that makes
So
sense.
I wonder if I just recognized it. Yeah, because we see these same locations and so many things. I would, of course, and maybe still that in my notes. I just kept thinking of Tom Sawyer's Island at Disneyland. So that's probably my first go-to, though. Now that we've been, taking a dump on Lily, uh, maybe we'll talk about the lieutenants a little bit. Who,
Yeah, well, Eustace isn't great either. He's very obsessed. Henry Buchanan is, he's flashy and he's new, but he's sort of kind of a person of circumstance. Like he doesn't have a lot to do. He sort of comes in after the windfall of their relationship, it seems.
yeah, I mean, I guess he's the most chill because, again, watching it the first time, Eustace comes on so creepy and weird, and that weird jealousy conversation. Like I was not knowing. Well, I do know that actor from Reanimator, I guess, but I certainly didn't recognize him. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the you know horrible guy, and they've already told us about the brutality of war, so I'm kind of thinking maybe it's going to tie in with this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the prologue is, the other ones we watched, the prologues are fine, but this one is a weird tone setter. It kind of like sets the tone, like the dial's like in the wrong place when you start. So
That's a really good way to put it. Agreed. Well, but he also, it's important that Eustace has the line, I'd come back from hell to be with you. So, he has to show his passion to lead up to that line so that we can all be creeped out for the remaining time before we see it happen.
you came back from hell? Tell me about it. What was it like? I want to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you start creepy singing when you come back from hell.
Well, I don't want to jump too far to the end, but it's interesting how as the episode goes on, at first she's the only one that hears him, but by the end, she is not the only person that hears or sees him. So that is an interesting element that he's ephemeral, but then all of a sudden he's really there, and people. Okay, I'll just jump to the end then. That they say some saw her dance alone, some saw her with a stranger, and some saw her with Eustace. So that's creepy. That's a nice thing to add. Again, it goes with the rhythm of the opening. The some saw, some saw, some saw. It's very consistent, the writing actually. But I thought that was a nice touch that there's different versions of the story, and it gives it sort of this urban legend quality.
Partly out of laziness, and partly because I'm not quite sure how to go about looking for. Oh no, again, these are supposed to be based on like true recountings at least, so it would be interesting to see the original tale for this one, because obviously they gotta dramatize it, blah blah blah. Last week was the Navigator. Obviously you don't know what was going on a merchant ship, so you need to dramatize all that.
Mhm.
But yeah, this if this were a modern series, it would have like a link at the end, like here you can check out the original story or something. But I wonder if there was a way they could have just brought that in a little bit more. I don't know. I guess on 1960s television, the medium is just too thin to carry that weight. Because now you listen to a podcast, and sometimes you'll have like 10 links, right? So easy.
Mhm.
You'd put a link for these now.
Well, we can put a link to the actual hold on, let me get to it. Fort Union is actually a national monument, and it became one on June 28th in 1954. So you could put a link to the actual place. You can go to Fort Union and you can see what it's like. I
You can do a
also
waltz and collapse if you want.
yeah, you have to spin faster and faster before the collapse, of course. But New Mexico, they keep referring to as a state, but of course it wasn't really a state until January 6th of 1912, making it the 47th state. At the time, it was the New Mexico Territory, and the southern part was the Gadsden Purchase, which made it Confederate, and the northern part was Union. And another fun fact is that Arizona became its own territory. Of course, that's bordering it in 1863. So during the Civil War, Arizona became a territory. It was it was a sought after area, the New Mexico Territory, because the western part of it was the Santa Fe Trail.
Right. And that's another thing. Spelling it out in the prologue, I was not aware that New Mexico is split. That's certainly something. I mean, the war has ended, as they've said, but certainly that's a thread you could pull on a little bit. There must have still been like weird friction, which they don't get into except by mentioning it at the beginning. So it's kind of weird in that case.
And they
And
do mention the Apaches, which is accurate. So the Apaches territory at one point was the Rockies, the Colorado Plateau, northern Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. So like big swath of that area where they planted themselves inside at Fort Union would be Apache territory. So that like opening line where it was like 22 of them and 3 of us, or some horrifying comment like that. And then at the end, the massacre that flips around, they don't really say what those numbers were, but when it's 22-3, everything's cool. But when they get ambushed, it's all bad and everyone's dead and everyone's
right.
upset. And
Well, I guess that's a confirmation bias. Well, it's a bias for sure. I guess not confirmation bias, but um, just really on a really slight tangent. The term fiddlestick should really come back.
I mean, it begins with you. It's like, go for it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
I also
fiddlesticks.
looked up Judas Priest because I was surprised to hear that. And I thought that was a much more recent euphemism, but that actually originated between 1910 and 1915. So that is a historically accurate. Well, it's not historically accurate for the Civil War era. So I guess I'm making that point. But in terms of 1960, it made sense. So that is an anachronism to have
Right.
anybody express Judas Priest
Yeah,
as.
the metal band just kind of confused everyone. Civil War obsessed Bob Dylan did do a song about Judas Priest in 1968 or whatever. So so it
That's a
was.
link. That's a link to put at the end of the
Oh, sure, sure.
podcast.
But who is it? Somebody and Judas Priest. I can't remember who the other person is. Um, cool song on this. It's on the John Wesley Harding album. Honestly, do I need a link that I think people can find that pretty easily? Here we have a ball with Watts's, and having been kind of spending some time in Muppet Land recently, I was really disappointed when we get to the ball. There weren't like a bunch of one-liners, uh, which interesting was I think it's Don Evans maybe. Anyway, in the Muppet Show, they because it was a British production, regular Muppet writer Jerry Jewell had to basically pair up with a British comedy writer for the first season. That comedy writer was the guy that did all the at the ball stuff. So, which I've been seeing since I was 3 years old, right, or younger. So I was just expecting weird comments, and that did not happen. So
The ball
definitely.
really was to the point. I mean, they showed up, there was one dance, and then everything went down. So
Oh, it's a great record scratch, right? As far as the band, doesn't play anymore, which I guess that means the entire band at least saw it. And yeah, I think the most entertaining moment of the episode is him opening his mouth and making a ghostly Watts come out of his mouth, because that was just bizarre. I like that. Would have been fine if he didn't start creepily, supernaturally singing that Watts is my personal note there. So
oh, it's a little creepy that he showed up. He looked very confident and happy about it too. But yeah, that's the thing. Everybody, uh, some people thought, I mean, you don't get to know who's who. So the band could have stopped because they thought she was just dancing by herself. But the reactions that were so strong would imply that they knew that it was a ghost. So I guess
yeah, the
yeah.
tone of the episode is the entire room is aware of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So maybe, well, I don't know. So then that doesn't really match up with the action, but
well,
it
the
suits it with that intro. So
why should we expect the epilogue to match up either if the prologue didn't? Which I mean, he directed the thing too, so you think he might have caught that. So, which did not happen in the other ones we watched. At least we didn't catch it like this one. Good episode, but yeah, there are some flaws on the prologue epilogue fitting with the episode itself, for sure. So
but the
I think.
episode ties nicely together. She gets her comeuppance for being, I mean, it's still unclear how she just instantly died, but it
Yeah, my
happens.
question was going to be what killed her, you know?
Was it shock? Was it like he like absorbed her soul? Like would it have been more special effectsy if it wasn't 1960s? Like all I saw was that things started happening more quickly and then she collapses and nobody seems to think she's dead. Like, her dad's there and her dad doesn't exactly rush over to tend to her. everyone's sort of spooked out by the fact that he was there, and she just lays on the floor, and everyone kind of comes over and leans over and looks at her. But then we find out that she was dead. So it was vague.
What's better in Twilight Zone episodes like The Fever, where everyone looks over the dead body and then just walks away, leaving the dead body in the middle of the street, which I think has happened a few times on that show. So hey, we can comment about, nitpick on anything, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but
But it was enjoyable. I did like the episode. That's true. We don't want to get too nitpicky, but it was a fun supernatural experience.
yes, she definitely flopped to the floor pretty hard. So I guess I was kind of seeing like the music was consuming her soul. He just come back from hell, so he's probably capable of doing some gnarly things. And ghost murder, I mean, geez, I don't we always hear about getting scared by ghosts and maybe accidentally killing ourselves after seeing the ghost, I guess, but I can't think of
Mm-hmm.
too many cases of like the ghost is going to straight up murder you.
Yeah, and it starts when she's asleep and it's almost 4 a.m. and she hears his voice, and then she doesn't believe that he's dead, and then she's right to not believe he's dead, or he is dead, but she's right to know that he's not gone. So, and everyone else gets to know as well.
But
So,
it
I
certainly
like,
would have been better if he was gone. So
but he said he'd come back.
yeah,
Like he
he's
kept
no
all of
liar.
his promises.
He may be a creep, but he is an honest creep.
Obsession knows no bounds, not even death.
Yes. Do you want to throw out any other big concepts or observations with this episode?
Big concepts or observations. I think I got my facts in there about the New Mexico territory. I thought that was pretty cool, um, and the Apaches. I'll throw out a weird legislative fact that I learned when learning about um, the American Indian Wars, and that is that the very first law that the United States created that discussed citizenship by naturalization was the Naturalization Act of 1790. And that's when they said that free white persons of good character were the only citizens of the country. So, I was trying to make a timeline of racism, and it starts with the American Indian Wars in 1609. And then we've got that, which establishes who can be a citizen. And then from there, then there's the active removal and mass murder, relocation of not just the Native Americans, but many others. But that, so I was trying to build up to what had been happening in the country since the Civil War. And then, of course, after the Civil War, there were a lot of relocations of the Navajos, and it just goes on and on until the 1900s, where it goes on less implicit or more, sorry, explicitly. Relocation and more latent racism occurred, of course, in the 20th century. But the murder years are from 1600s to the early 1900s, and so just because I had to read that intro, I just throw out that there's a lot of really interesting information about where the Native Americans were during all of these centuries and during the Civil War, before and after, and its own history of those people is very interesting.
And that comes after the pestilence years, doesn't it? I mean, keep in mind that genocide had already happened. Like 80% of the native populations were gone before we showed up to, knock out another 10 or more percent. Because there's tales of explorers going through what is now Ohio being like, it's like a garden because it was. Just nobody lived there anymore. So, yeah, I mean, I imagine, word of, you said 1609 for the ones in the states area, but I imagine some kind of word of Cortez and his adventures had already come up from Mexico and that sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, some gnarly stuff going on in the Americas.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was actually my biggest takeaway from this episode, was going down this rabbit hole, learning a little bit more about those timelines, and placing this, tragic story of this white lady, with the perspective of what else they were comparing it to.
Yeah,
So
because we don't see we see zero Apache. Yeah, it's all off screen Shakespeare style, right? Or
I
Greek
guess
drama
that's
style.
better in a way. I mean, I
Okay, good point.
would, right. That's sort of a saving grace, I would say, is that we didn't have to go through red face and some of
They
the
would have
more
cast Eastern
atrocious
Europeans probably.
perhaps. So so yes. But no, I don't want to say I didn't like this episode. I liked very much, but that's what's fun about coming back to things like this with a modern lens is, learning more and learning deeper than the first time around.
Let's
So
do
that's
some
what.
let's do some questions on this episode. The first being who in this episode takes a step beyond, slightly rephrased.
Can I only pick one person?
I guess you might be picking two or more. Go for it. This is an open question. It's meant to be. You can respond to it however you want.
Okay, well, this is easy. Obviously, Eustace literally made this stuff beyond. And you can argue that Lily did also, but Eustace went one step beyond before anybody else did. So he is the winner of the stepping beyond.
I assume Lily had the weirder experience though, being haunted and then dance floor murdered, or at least massively fainting. I mean, it's called Death Waltz. I'm just gonna assume that she's dead at the end.
They said she was
Oh
dead.
yeah, they said she's dead at the end. Yeah, you're just on screen. Nobody really reacts much. I guess it's pretty
Right.
surprising. You see a ghost dances, does creepy supernatural music, girl dies. You'd be there for a second, probably like, wait, what? Huh? That's.
Hmm.
I guess that's actually not completely unrealistic.
No, she collapses first. So probably people thought that she just fainted from the weirdness, but then they confirmed that she had.
Yeah. Whereas the lieutenant probably had like a weirder experience so that we just didn't see on screen because he went to hell
And
and then
back.
and then back. Yeah, he went to hell and got out of hell. So
Although,
um
if she was hearing him the whole time, so he died 3 hours before they got back to camp, and she just heard him about 20 minutes before. So, I mean, but I guess time's relative and time's meaningless. So, yes, he could have already gone and come back in what we perceived as the 2 hours, or what the story perceived as 2 hours. Um, or he could have been talking to her immediately after he died, and what is time? Nothing. It's all
actually when I was watching
relative.
again, they say the dance on Saturdays. I feel like the dance was actually like a few days, possibly a few days later. Because
From his death.
when he gets the news, when she gets the news, it's like, yeah, it's been 3 or 4 hours, right? So, but the appearance, so maybe
Oh,
she's
you're
actually,
right.
I
You're
think she
right.
might be haunted for like a few days by this. So,
Okay, and that's cool. And then this brings up the trivia on IMDb, which I'm going to read because I still don't understand it and I don't know if it's true because it's sort of okay. It says on most video versions, there is a scene missing right before the final dance scene filmed in the general store. Okay, that's the first sentence. And the second sentence is this scene takes place in Lily's bedroom with the ghost Eustace appearing in her room. So does that mean that he appears in the room and then they have this like flashback to the general store? I think that fact is confusing, but if they are implying that there was an additional encounter that occurred before he shows up at the dance, so if that's the cutscene, then that makes not more sense, but it sort of as the impact of her death, seeing him for the first time only at the dance. You see what I
yeah,
mean?
I think that is a good one to cut, actually. I mean, if you're going to, it's the more effective that way. So,
It's more effective for her to actually see him for the first time when everyone else does, as opposed to like hearing him is one thing, but actually seeing him is the climactic error, I guess.
yes. Um, yeah, okay, that's interesting.
But
Do
that fact is written a little weird, so I wasn't sure if that was true because it says it's in two different places. Is it in the general store? Is it in her room? Is it somehow both? Maybe it was just
maybe
written
she
kind
lives in the general store? I don't know.
of. Well, they had that beautiful set already built, so you might as well go back to it. That's the most elaborate set in the story, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it seems it was MGM's, as you were saying
Hmm.
earlier. I don't remember that was on or off air, but yeah. um, do these people deserve their strange fates? I guess Lily, we've already soured on, but I don't know. Death is always kind of a heavy trip, man. I don't think she necessarily deserved to die for being someone you'd have a toxic relationship with.
Yeah, I agree. That is a little harsh of a sentence, but I think it's about her betrayal and about her leading him on. So he was ready to do the till death do us part, or not really, just kidding, I'm here too. And she was very frivolous about it. So I think that's part of the tragic part, is that he was all sincere. Well, okay, he was obsession, but a sincere obsession. And she was like, yeah, sure, just go out there, maybe die, get a higher ranking, and then we'll get married. She just sort of was leading him on. So
I
I
guess he
don't
just
know.
mixed up till death do us part with I'll drag you to hell. So that's I guess that's the case there. Yeah,
Unless that isn't where he went. I mean, he was being, maybe that was hyperbolic, and he lived a good life and he was just coming back to get her. But that's part of the spooky part, is where did he go and where is she going and where are we all going?
did he live a good life? He was out there killing Apaches.
That's a really important part. You're
I was
right. I
gonna
guess,
say he deserved it because he's going on posse missions, right? I guess it's not a posse because they're military, but
yeah, this goes back to the Nazi thing, right? He's just doing his duty, but does that mean that he is an okay person because he was following orders? So yeah, good point. Maybe he's not. Maybe he is the villain as well.
although he wasn't
Um,
supposed to be there that day. It wasn't
and
her manipulations.
exactly. That's,
But
yeah.
he'd been on previous patrols, so it's not like he had done it before.
Yeah. So was his blood on her hands because of that, or is that part of it? Like he's coming back because she's the one responsible. She created the machinations for his demise.
Yeah, so I think he's way more deserving of a horrible fate because he's out there killing humans, where she's just being, having high school relationships at age 27.
That's a really excellent point. You're right. I overlooked the whole murder thing. Um, yeah, I was looking at his sincerity as toward her, but that is absolutely not the totality of his character.
But again, even that's creepy with that whole jealousy stuff at the beginning. So I'm not even like personally even willing to. I don't like him. I think is like
I
they're
think that's
kind
what
of
we're getting at.
yeah they're
Everything you brush up against, man, I'm going to remember that as really a new threshold of creepy, to be jealous of anything you brush up against. I just can't. That is the best writing in this episode.
because I guess they're are they even I guess maybe that's actually a plus to this episode. It's really hard to see who they're painting as our protagonist or who you're really supposed to sympathize with. It's left super vague through the whole episode, which I kind of makes it work better, I think.
Yeah, you're right. It does. That's a really good point. That ambiguity is important. I guess Buchanan is pretty aimless, but again, he is a soldier, and the colonel is sort of this like friendly papa figure, but he is in charge of all the murder as part of his job. So yeah, and maybe the stepmom who comes on, she says to her, being she's like an evil stepmother in the storybooks, which is an exaggeration. I have another fun fact, actually. That lady, let me look up who that is. The person who plays the stepmother, I was looking at her IMDb. That is, oh no, I lost it. Where's the page? Do you have that pulled up? This
Let me
specific episode, what her name is?
uh hold on, I think I'm pretty close to that. Bernice Clark is the character. KT Stevens is
Yes,
the
Katie
actor.
Stevens. Look at her filmography, and you'll notice that she was an actress when she was 2, and then she
Oh,
came back when she was like 20.
child
So she
star.
was a
Yeah.
baby actress. Yeah, isn't that fun? I mean, I don't. It was only a couple films, so I don't know if at 2 you're really an actress yet. But I thought that was interesting that she was a true lifer with the gap in between.
Missile to the
Totally
Moon,
random. I'm
Jungle
sorry, but
Hell. That
since I
sounds
was thinking
awesome.
of her,
Did a movie with Ginger Rogers. It
Katie
seems
Boyle.
must have been her last movie or close to it because it's the same as her death year. Is Corinna with it looks like Whoopi Goldberg. I haven't seen that, but is that Whoopi Gold? Yeah, that's Whoopi Gold. Sorry, it's a really tiny thumbnail there, which I guess that's why it's called a thumbnail. Um, yeah, I got slightly lazy doing my trivia, I guess, and did not get that far down the cast list. But um, how trippy is this episode on the tripometer? 0 is not trippy. 5 is very trippy. Where would you like to place this one?
I'm gonna put this at a 4.4.
Oh, you're going pretty high. Okay.
Yeah, climbing back from death and actually killing someone as a ghost. I think that's pretty trippy. Time is in there, death is in there. Yeah, I'll commit to a 4.4.
They would have to have shown me him in hell for me to commit to that Trippo score. I was thinking a healthy 3.5. I've said before, kind of Western vibes tend to take it down. That was not a problem here, so it did not take it down. And what pushed it up was the insane singing at the end. So that was that was just that was a moment. I mean, if nothing else, watch the episode for that moment because that's something you have not. I don't think you've seen that anywhere. I can't think of anywhere else where we've just had the music stops, the ghost shows up, opens his mouth, and this bizarro canned music starts coming out. That was pretty trippy to me. So that definitely deserves the 3.5. And if you want to take it higher, I can get that.
Maybe can he talk? Did we hear him talk at all, or was the only sound he uttered the music, which is super creepy?
I think in the dance hall, because he's talking, you hear his disembodied voice before, but I
Right.
believe there might be a line that's still disembodied, like his mouth isn't moving.
Okay.
I can't
Because it's in her
quite
head
remember.
is what we're to understand, is that she seems to be the only one that can hear him.
Right. I assume everyone heard the music. I'd be disappointed if they didn't hear the music. So
The looks on their faces said that they were traumatized enough by whatever was going on. So likely they did hear it come out of him.
well,
Or
ghost
just the
showing
sheer
up will
sight of
do it.
him.
Yeah, as well as
Yeah.
say if a ghost just suddenly like fades into the room, that's gonna make most people, double take a little bit. So I assume, some of us get a little jaded and they're just like whatever when that happens. But
Right.
a Ghostbuster wouldn't care. They'd be like, whatever.
Oh, their work's cut out for them.
There's some ghosts that murder, but some of them are more like demons. So
Yeah, that's how we get into puppets and ventriloquist dummies and like really super terrifying things, according to me. So yeah,
yeah.
let's not get into all that.
Okay. Not a Slimer fan. Okay.
Oh, I do like Slimer, but is he really a demon? I mean, I'm talking like Dead Silence or whatever those creepy ventriloquist dummy movies are that are super scary.
Oh, okay. So
Slimer's lovable.
my brain was just sticking in Ghostbusters territory. I also quite liked in the 2016 one the demon ghost that just rides around on what's her name's head for a while at the concert.
I only saw that once, but I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah. Leslie, what is her name? Leslie Jones? Is that it?
Yes. Yes. I
Okay.
think so. I
Sorry,
think
my
so.
brain was just rupturing and it was disturbing me. I couldn't remember her name off the top of my head, but I think that's right. Yes. Okay. Um, got a final thought on this one.
No, but I have promotional information this time as opposed to the last times you've asked me if I had anything to promote. And I was like, no, I haven't been doing anything, but I do this time.
You're
So
doing
whenever
something.
you're ready for that.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Well, since I neglected to do this when we did the Twilight Zone episode. If anyone's interested in learning more about Elizabeth Montgomery's father, Robert Montgomery, who was a movie star in the 30s and 40s, I have some research to share well, let's see. On Twitter, I do have, if you're into like stories and facts and research, and I've also been mentioning when TCM is airing some of his lesser aired films lately, then you can go to Twitter and the handle is @moremontgomery. And if you go over to Pinterest, I have something called Ephemeral Robert Montgomery, which is a digital archive. It's hundreds, almost 1,000, but for now, hundreds of promotional materials and movie memorabilia from all over the world. And that is lobby cards and posters, magazines, cigarette cards, trading cards, photographs, press kits, like so many really cool things, all in a visual archive. So, and that is, it's called Ephemeral Robert Montgomery, and you can go to pinterest.com/moreover Montgomery is the name of that one. So, in case you want to do some additional research, that is available to you.
Hit me with those links. I will add those to the show notes, but
Okay.
probably not the Bob Dylan song. You find that on your own.
I mean, it would be great to put that in there to see if someone had really listened to the whole episode to know what that was referencing. But up to you. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
thank you. Yes, I did want to share that this time since I neglected to last time.
Radio. As for us, it's Time Enough Podcast on X, and we're on Facebook, and you could support us on Patreon at Podcastio. Podcastio is where we do lots of other podcasts, but I won't get into all of that because we are also suggesting that you go support the SGA WGA strikes, which is why we're doing One Step Beyond. I can talk about whatever I want. That's why I keep throwing out the Twilight Zone name a little bit, but we're trying to show a touch of solidarity for a nasty labor situation, which kind of mirrors a lot of labor situations in America. And I would say a lot of the gripes they have, not the AI one, but a lot of the other ones are why I work in Japan and not America. I get it. Okay. Let's. I don't like dancing. I think I'm safe from a death waltz. I'm good to go.
Yeah, I don't actually know how to dance. So, although waltz seems like the first one I would learn. So
Actually,
it's
dude,
possible.
I kind of know how to waltz. I actually, to be honest, I was in a dance class once. I technically might know how to waltz, but I also learned how to swing dance a little bit. And I remember once throwing a female manager into a wall because we were swing dancing, and I didn't do it right. So
No, I've not seen a professional do any wall slamming, so that might need some brushing up.
I definitely wasn't a professional, and this was in a bar in Maine, and everyone had already had a few beers. So that's how it happens. Okay, leaving some silence to spot. It just makes it so much easier than sitting there. Oh, where is it? Where is it? So yeah. Some people do countdowns. Some people record things properly and edit them properly. I just shut up for 5 seconds at a time.
I learned that you weren't editing out my intro mistakes when I finally looked at the transcript. So I tried to be really good and one and done it this time, so that
Oh,
just in
okay.
case you're not editing, I
Did
don't
I
download.
not?
I
Okay, I
mean,
thought I
according to the
did.
transcript, unless the transcript is psychic, but
Okay.
it can be hard to edit me to sound smarter, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And also I editing 3 or 4 podcasts, so sometimes things will
Understood.
wax a little bit.
Understood. I just have to up my game a little bit. That's fine.
Well, you're talking on microphone, which it's not top quality, but what do we have? We had Mark coming from his car. Yeah, that sound kind of like garbage. And one of our guests, which Mark brought in, but he described it as sounding like he was coming in from space. So
That could work. It depends on what you're reviewing.
well, that was last week's films and filth, and I felt a little bad because listening back, I was like, he did have a few things to say, but it do come in and like a little lower than the rest of us and kind of echoey, and I could tell where like he couldn't really just talk to us conversationally, right? Because of whatever weird delay slash echo is going on. So, I yeah, he was maybe getting talked over a little more, but I'm like, well, that's kind of because of technical reasons. So, as long as it's like not echoey, it usually works out. I think is the main rule of thumb. And yeah. um. Okay, let's see. Like I said, I don't really. The thing is, now that we started doing this, I feel like we kind of have to follow through, right? So.
Oh yeah, totally. This is fun. It's a fun departure.
Yeah, so I don't know how long we'll be doing these. I might give you a buzz about another one at some point.
Well, it
Um,
says 97 episodes, so I don't know if that means that all of those are available. Probably not, but it looks like some really fun stuff.
yeah, I think a few of them might literally like functionally be lost.
Hmm.
Um,
Which might be a fun episode to just go through the lost ones. I don't know. I guess I need to um,
People do it
read
with
the
Doctor Who,
descriptions.
don't they?
Yeah.
People with Doctor Who. We read a description like, was it? Would you think that would have been a good one? I don't know. But yeah, I'll probably get to you about one of those. What are we doing on the films? Well, yeah, like I said, we're doing our weird off stuff for at least September and October. So, because the first couple, when we get back to doing the list, is like Toy Story and Love Guru, which is very much studio stuff, right? Because there are films on there we could easily get away with doing.
Maybe that's the way to go in the interim.
Yeah, what is it? The Hunt. Oh, I want to go. We want to go in order though. Nah,
Mhm.
nah. Actually, almost everything here has is Dragon Wars, D Wars. That's Korean. We could do that, but that's pretty far down on the list. High and Low. And then yes, it's pretty. Oh, Boggy 3, which is something Bollywood, but I don't really know what it is. Das Boot. You could do. We could do that now. Princess Mononoke. I mean, there is stuff, but it seems better just to wait. So like with the Keatons, we have like three Chaplins on the list. I'm like, and Keaton's like right off the list, like 105 or something, right? And yeah, I mean,
Criminal.
I'm one of those guys that has to keep back. But yeah, Chaplin's great. Chaplin's great. Keaton, you know. So
Keaton all day long. That's my vote.
yeah. The same here. But people are, oh, so you hate Chaplin? No, I'm not saying I hate
No.
Chaplin. I just
Yeah.
you're not a social media person, so yeah, you don't know my Facebook
No, I
profile.
don't have Facebook. I do have Twitter, so I could stalk you on that and engage in some silly conversations.
Sorry, that's the whiteboard. That's not what I wanted to bring up, I think. Unless I can add. I'm trying to bring up my Facebook profile picture, which would entertain you. Screen. I guess I just do it with a screen. You're getting my entire screen now, are you?
Yes, I am.
There, and again, there's my. I'm trying to Keaton it up for my Facebook
I love it.
photo,
Excellent.
and
Are
nobody
those
knows what that
goats?
is. Hmm.
Are those goats? Like
Oh,
two over.
oh yeah. That's someone else's story though, right? So I don't have a story. I don't even understand stories. So that's something I do not understand. And I don't understand resize window to I don't know how to get out of this either. Zoom. Huh. Okay. Weird. Yeah, I don't know how to get out of this. It's amazing. Okay.
Just shut everything down and it'll take care of itself.
Yours. Oh, there we go. Stop share. It's kind of in a weird spot. There we go.
Mm.
Okay. I'm gonna go to work before too long, so I will catch you before too long. Thanks for
All right.
jumping in.
Yeah, thanks. Have a nice day and I'll talk to you soon.
Word up. Hit